Let me start with advanced reports in the sense I want to understand your basic understanding.
Sure.
How what do you mean by an advanced report?
To extract the detail level report, we do advanced reports.
Okay. What are the key aspects for creating any report?
The data source is important.
Hmm.
The requirement, understanding the requirement.
Okay, fine. All right, no problem. What is a matrix report? Do you know what is a matrix report?
It basically gives you the aggregated values, like it's basically a pivot, like we do it in Excel.
Okay, so a matrix report is used for groupings and summarizations, right? While advanced report allows you to get or extract detailed data, a matrix report is not, or the purpose of a matrix report is not to get detailed data. Rather, it allows you to get or define different groupings and summarize your data. All right, so matrix reports is the foundation, it's the basis of advanced analytics in Workday. So for example, composite reports, they are all based on matrix reports. Okay, so the task for creating a custom report is obviously a custom report. All right, before I go there, what are the different what do you think are the different use cases for matrix reports? So in which scenarios do you think you would want to build a matrix report?
Turnover rate, then scorecards.
Okay. What else?
We have some like head count to get the head count. Then
Okay,
we have like head count by location, head count by job level. So these are the metrics report available in our system.
right. Yeah. So a matrix report is primarily used wherein you need these summarizations, right? So you don't need details of all employees. Instead, what you need is the count of your employees, right? You need, let's say, the termination trend of your employees. You need the hire trend or the change of trend. So it is these groupings or summarizations or high level analytics that we use matrix reports for. So how do I create a matrix report? Uh, my task is exactly similar to how I create a normal report or any report for that matter. So the task is create custom report. I'll give a name for my custom report, and I'm calling it, let's say, report underscore uh, worker count, worker count by company. So what I need is a count of employees in my different companies, right? So I'm creating a matrix report for that, and the report type that I'm selecting is matrix. Now, just like an advanced report, your matrix report would be based on the same data sources. So in terms of how do you select a data source, define a data source, that is exactly similar to your advanced reports, right? So I'm taking my normal data source, all active and terminated workers. Okay. Now, what is my requirement to get a count of employees in my different companies, right? So when I go into a matrix report, the layout of a matrix report is very different to how I see a layout of an advanced report. So as I mentioned, a matrix report is used for defining various groupings and summarizations. So what you see here is a section called row grouping. If I scroll down, there is a section called column grouping, which is optional. And further down, I have something called fields to summarize, and I have a summarization type called count. Okay, so what was my original requirement? To get worker counts by company. So I want to group workers based on the companies they belong to. So the row grouping which is required, I'm selecting company as my row grouping, right? Now, in order to manage this requirement, this very simple use case that I gave, this is all I need to do. I just need to define the grouping parameter, which is company here. Now, the summarization of count, this is a default summarization. And what does this summarization do? It simply counts the instances that are returned by the data source. So we know that this data source will return one row of data for each worker instance. So this count, it is simply counting the instances which the data source returns. And then these instances are grouped by the various companies. So that is all this report does. So what I'll do is, just to restrict my report output, I'll select a few companies. So I'm going to filter, and I am going to add a filter. Company in the selection list. Let's take some global modern services company. I'll take some random 8 or 9 companies. Okay, let's run this report. Now, busy, all this report is doing is getting me the various companies in rows, and against each of these companies I'm getting a count. Now, what is this count? If I click on this count, it basically shows me the workers who are part of that company. So all that I actually did on this report was selected the grouping parameter. This count is automatically available to me. Okay, now each of these companies, I also want to understand the gender of employees. So in GMS Australia, there are 11 employees. I want to know what is the male versus female count. So now I can define additional grouping parameters. Let's edit our report once again. I'll add a couple of other companies which have bigger population. Okay, so what was my requirement? In each of these companies, I also want to understand what is the gender, right? So in company ABC, if there are 50 employees, I want to know how many of those are males, how many of those are females. So I decide that I want to add a grouping parameter at my column level, and the parameter I'm selecting is gender. So I'm selecting gender as my grouping parameter. Okay, and now I run this report. This time, if you see, for each of these companies, it is still giving me the count of workers. So in GMS UK, there are 40 employees, out of which I have now defined my column grouping as well. So there are two groupings that I have defined now. One is my column grouping, which was basically gender, and then I have my row grouping, which is basically companies,
Yes.
right? So this way I can define any kind of grouping parameters. So when it comes to grouping, I can do up to 8 row groupings and up to 2 column groupings. So if you see, I have, let's go to the edit mode once again. Okay, so I can do define up to 8 row level groupings, and I can define up to 2 column level groupings. So for example, let's say in each of these companies, I also want to know which country an employee belongs to. So I want to understand for each company and country how many employees are working. So I'm selecting a sub grouping. As I mentioned, we can do up to 8 groupings here. I'm selecting the grouping as location country. Okay, I want to sort this data right now. It is row total descending. I want to sort it in an alphabetic ascending order so that all come together, right? And if I want, I can define one more grouping parameter. So I can define up to 8 grouping parameters. Let's run this report. So in GMS Sweden, in Sweden, there are 6 employees. In GMS UK, right? So in GMS UK, let me get my pen. So in GMS UK, in France, there is 1 worker. In GMS UK, in UK, there are 39 workers. So it is
Okay.
still giving me the same data. The difference is now it is dividing the data into different parameters. Let's quickly verify this. So each of these values are actually hyperlinks. So I can click on any one of these. Okay, so this worker, it shows as GMS UK and France. Let's open this worker. All right, so the location is Paris. That means country is France. And if I look at the organizational details, he belongs to GMS UK, right? So based on these parameters that I have defined, system is automatically grouping my employees, right? And showing me the data as per the grouping parameters that I have defined. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions till now?
No. So we can add up to 8 items in the row grouping.
Up to 8 and up to
Oh,
2 in the column. But the more the items you add, it keeps getting more complex to look at. Okay.
okay.
uh, Now each of these is a hyperlink. So when I click on any one of this, it is giving me that count. So when I click on 70, it is giving me the count of all of these 70 employees across these 8 or 9 companies or 11 companies. When I click on 35, so what is 35? There are 35 males. There are
Mhm.
21 males in GMS UK in United Kingdom. So whenever I click on any of these hyperlinks, it gives me details of employees or workers or instances which form that count. But let's say I want to also, so I'm getting worker details. Adesha and these 21 employees. But what I need is I also want to see some additional details. So maybe in addition to these workers, their name, I want to see their position details, their hire details, their job details, their manager details, and so on and so forth. So what I can now define is detailed data. So till now we have only been showing on the main report output groupings and summarizations. So let's edit this report once again. So at this point in time, in terms of those hyperlinks, it is only giving me uh, the the instance details, right? What
Yes.
actually want is yeah, question, Sachin.
Nothing.
Okay, so what I actually want is detailed data. So if you see, there is this tab called drill down, and this is a tab which we have not seen in an advanced report. All the other tabs are common between an advanced report and a matrix report. So I want to add, if I go to drill down, there are a few sections. I'm looking at the detailed data section. So here I'm adding some detailed data columns. I want to add the worker column. I want to add, let's say, the job profile of the worker, the position of the worker, supervisory org this worker belongs to, and I can add any number of fields, right? I'm adding manager level 1 and so on and so forth, right? So if you see here, I'm adding fields just like I would add to an advanced report. So this is the detailed data section wherein you can add any fields that you add on an advanced report. So these are the set of fields that I want to add. Maybe also want to add, let's say, the length of service. And okay, now when I run this report, my overall output is still the same. You'll not find any difference on my output. That's because we have not done any changes on the matrix tab. So when I run this report, it still gives me the same rows, the same columns, the same groupings. So there's no difference. The difference is when I click on these values or these numbers. So let's click on this number 33. Earlier, I was only getting the worker name, right? Now it is showing me all the detailed data for these 33 employees. All the detailed data that I added, the worker, job profile, position, and if you see, I can quickly go ahead and download this detailed data. So it is still giving me those high level summarizations and groupings and metrics. But now, in addition to that summarization, if I want to get into the details and check the actual workers, I can click on this hyperlink and it will show me all of that detailed data. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Now we have been looking at this area, right? If you look up a bit, you see that there is a view by criteria as well. Now the same thing you also see here. So if you see, there is this lower triangle, and when I click on this lower triangle, these are the details it shows me. Or if I directly click on this number, then this is what it opens. So this lower triangle over here, right, and this section are basically the same thing, right? So again, this area or these drop downs or prompts, they allow me to view this detailed data based on any parameter. So these are again grouping parameters. So now there are 70 employees. I want to view these employees, let's say, based on their age group. So if I click here, you see that there is a view by option called age group. I'm selecting age group and refresh. So when I do that, if you see these 70 employees, my overall count is still 70. But these 70 employees are now grouped based on this grouping parameter called age group. So out of these 70 employees, there are 29 who are in the age group 31 to 40. So I want to see who are these 29 workers. So once again, if you see, this is also a hyperlink. When I click here, it takes me to the details of those 29 workers, right? And the same detailed data. I want to view these 29 workers. Let's assume based on, let's say, the grade of these employees, the compensation grade. So I'm selecting the grade and refresh. I can select one more option if I want to, but I'm just selecting one. So these 29 workers, they are divided, or they have these grades. So out of these 29, 17 workers are in non-management grade. I want to see who these 17 workers are. And when I click here, again, if you see, system shows me details of those 17 workers. I want to view these 17 workers by any other parameter, I can go ahead and do that. So if you see, this allows me to view data based on any of these parameters. Now the question is, where are these parameters coming from? These parameters are coming from, or these grouping parameters are coming by default. So I did not add any one of these on our report. It is coming to us automatically from the data source. So this view by option, this is also known as the drill down options. This is coming automatically. So till now, what we have done is we have added detailed data, right? And this is the detailed data that we have added. Let's edit this report and let's modify the drill down values. So the drill down values were all coming by default. I didn't have to add it explicitly, but what I want is to restrict them. So I'm editing the report once again and then coming to drill down. In drill down, so we have added detailed data. Now I want to, the drill down values are coming from by default. I don't want the default values, I want specific values. So I'm clicking here and selecting drillable fields. So I just need, let's say, age group. I want, let's assume, compensation grade. I want management level, and so on and so forth. So I can add any kinds of drillable fields. So I just need three. I am not adding anything else. When I click on OK, and run this report, so my overall output is still the same, but this time when I look at my detailed data and look at these drillable fields which are available. Now if you see, I have just these three fields,
Okay.
right? So the drill down fields are available by default. I can restrict the available fields, right? Okay, now if I want, I can also disable all drilling for the report. So right now if you see, when I click on this number, it gives me the detailed data first, right? And then if I want, I can select a view by options. Okay, let's go ahead and edit this report in a different tab. So we'll leave this here as a reference, and I'm making few changes on my next tab. So if I go back to drill down, here I have a couple of options at the bottom. The first one, this is sort. If I want to sort data, let's say I want to sort these employees based on their age, and I want to sort them in ascending order. Okay, the next one is drill down options. Here I have two options. One is disable all drilling for the report. So let's click on OK. So when I run this report now, you see that all drilling has been disabled. So none of this is a hyperlink now, right?
Yes.
The second option is not to disable drilling, but disable the drilling to details. So let's edit this and look at the second option that is available. Under drill down, the second option that is available is disable drill to details for the report. So let's select the second option and click on OK, and run this report. Now, drilling is not disabled, right? However, earlier, if you see when I was clicking on this number, it was showing me the detailed data. Let's click on this number now. Now, if you see, it is not giving me detailed data. It is directly giving me the view by option, and the view by option it is selecting is the first one. So why is that the case? The case is we have disabled the drill to details. So I cannot look at the details anymore. I can only look at the view by options. So what is the parameter that we selected this time? We said disable drilling to details. So I cannot see any details now. The only thing that I can see is the grouping parameters or the drillable parameters. Make sense?
Yes. But we cannot hide the criteria view by option, right? We can only hide the detailed data.
No, we cannot.
Okay.
We cannot.
Got it.
If you want to hide, no, you can disable the entire drilling. Okay, so let's go to drill down now. And now if I come back and remove everything, go back to the default with respect to drill down options, and run. Now this time it gives me the detailed data, and that detailed data is sorted based on age. So if you remember, we had added age as the sort criteria. Earlier age was not the sort criteria, so it was giving me values randomly in an alphabetic ascending order based on worker. Now it is giving me data based on the age in an alphabetic order, right? So this is the default view.
Okay.
Okay, let's go back into the report. Now let's remove this location. Uh, okay, so what I'm doing is, all right, now in addition to the default summarization of count, right, if I want, I can show any additional summarizations as well. So for example, I want to get the, let's say, the average age of employees. So I'm searching for a summarization called average, and in the summarization field I want to get age. Or maybe I want to get, let's say, the maximum total base pay that an employee gets. So I'm selecting the summarization type called maximum, and I want total base pay amount. At the same time, in each company, I also want, let's say, the minimum total base pay amount. So if you see, I can, in addition to simply getting the count, I can also define any other summarizations as well. Let's click on OK. Okay, now this looks a bit complex, right? So what is system doing? This is the row grouping, and these are the column groupings, right? So in each company, so in GMS Sweden, there are two males, right? The first male has age of 44, the second male has age of 43. So the average age is 44, right? What is the maximum base pay? 46,000. Excuse me. So probably one of these workers has a base pay of 46,848, and that's what is showing is the maximum base pay. The other worker has a base pay of 35,000. If you see here, because there's just one person, one male, the maximum and minimum is obviously the same. Now, in addition to two males, there are four females. Their average age is 39, right? So 32, 33, 40, and 52. The maximum base pay of these four females is this, and minimum is this. Now, for this entire row, there are six workers. The average age is 41. Their maximum is 118, which is basically a maximum of this entire row. And the minimum is this one. So if you see, any kind of summarizations that I add, system is showing me those summarizations in terms of row grouping and column grouping. And I can add any kind of summarizations, right? So in GMS UK, there are 21 males, their average age is 44. There are 17 females, their average age is 41. All right. So I can add any kind of summarizations. I can show maximum values, minimum values, average values, sum, so on and so forth.
Okay.
All right. Let's add one more summarization. So if you see, I have a count of employees. I'll remove gender because if you see it looks a bit complex. So just to make the layout simple, let me remove gender and OK. Let's run this report once again and then we'll make additional modifications. All right. So now in each of these companies, this is the count of employees, this is the average age, this is the maximum base pay, this is the minimum base pay. So it is basically showing me the same data. It's just that now the grouping is only done for a company level, not at the gender level. All right. Okay. I want to add one more summarization. So I have the count of employees. What I need is the count of managers. So in GMS Sweden, there are 6 employees. I want to know how many of these employees are managers. All right. So let's edit this report once again. So scroll to the bottom. I want to add one more summarization, which is, so I want to get the sum of managers. Now there's no direct field called sum of managers. So what I've done is I have created a calculated field which is eval expression. Now there are many available. Let's take one of these randomly. I think this is, so let me quickly verify this. Okay, so there is a calculated field called eval expression. We'll look at this calculated field in a bit. For now, let's run this report first. Okay, this, if you see, oh, it's not giving me. Let me quickly verify the calc field. Maybe there are no managers. There should be a manager in UK. Let me quickly check the calc field. Uh, the calc field is correct. So are there no managers? What I do is I would add GMS US as well because I think there are managers in GMS US. So let's remove GMS Norway and let's add oh, there's no GMS USA. Okay. I think there would be some managers available in this company. Let's run this report first. Mm, this is actually strange. Uh, Worker. Uh, mm, Let me let me take some other. So this is a calculated field of type eval expression. What does eval expression do? Eval expression basically evaluates a series of conditions. If the condition is true, it returns the corresponding value. So here I'm basically checking, is the person a manager? And this, if you see, is a excuse me, workday delivered field. So this field is a field of type boolean. It will either return true if this condition is true. If it returns true, then system returns the corresponding value. If it returns false, then system would check the subsequent condition and see if this next condition is true or not. If that condition is true, it will return the corresponding value. So let's say let me, because this is not working, let me check a different condition. So there is another condition to check. So I'm checking, is the person an international assignee? Identifies is if a worker is on an international assignment. So let me take this condition. So if the worker is an international assignee, this will return 1. If, then I can add any additional conditions. So with a calculated field of type evaluate expression, it allows me to write a series of conditions. If the condition is true, the corresponding values returned. So I can add any number of conditions that I want to. If none of these conditions are true, then system returns the default value. So here, basically what I need is, if the person is on an international assignment, then I want the system to return 1. If the person is not on international assignment, I want the system to return 0, right? Okay, let's see if this works for me now. I'm refreshing this report. Oh, I haven't saved it. I have. Okay, I should actually change the title. So it shows that there are 2 workers, out of which one is an international assignee. There are 276 workers in GMS US, out of which 2 are international assignees. So what am I doing in this report now? So this function of type evaluate expression, it returns 1, a numeric value 1, if the person is an international assignee. If the person is not an international assignee, it returns 0. So whatever value this calculated field returns, it will either return 1 or 0. What am I doing on this report is, I'm simply summing those values. So whatever value this calc field returns, I'm simply adding it. So we see I'm actually adding the number of international assignees, because only if a person is international assignee, I'll get a 1. Else I'll get a 0. So that's why uh, in GMS USA, there are 2 international assignees. Whereas in GMS UK, or in here, there are no international assignees. There's just 1 international assignee here. So when I click here, there are 2 workers. Now, how would I know which of these workers is an international assignment? So let's click here. Now again, it gives me both those workers. So if I click anywhere on this tab, on this row, it gives me details of those 2 workers. So once again, there are 276 workers in GMS USA. When I click on this number count, it gives me details of those 276 workers, right? When I click here, however, what I ideally want is only those 2 workers who are international assignees, but it still gives me 276. So whenever I'm doing any summarizations, right? And I'm doing these 5 or 6 summarizations. Now, in a single row, no matter where I click, system would give me the same data. Which data is the system giving me? The detailed data that I had added. So no matter where I click on a given row, system is basically giving me the same detailed data, right? Now I don't want this. What I actually want is when I click here, it is giving me all 276 workers, which is perfectly all right. But I want to know who are these two international assignees. So there are two ways I can handle this. The first one is I can go ahead and modify my detailed data. So I can click here, edit my report, and in drill down, I can add one more column which will allow me to understand if the person is an international assignee or not. So I'm adding one more column and I'm adding the same field is international assignee. Let's see if this field is available. Yeah, so I'm adding the same field. So if the person is an international assignee, it will return me yes. If not, it will return me no. And for that, I'm also sorting my data based on the same field. Earlier, the data was being sorted on the age. Now I want to sort it on the fact in a descending order so that all international assignees are at the top. So let's run this report now. Oh, it shouldn't be alphabetic descending. Yeah, it should be alphabetic descending because it would be either yes or no or blank. So now let's run this report. It is giving me the same data, but the difference is when I click on this row this time, it is giving me whether the person is an international. So if you see, there are two international assignees who are there, Gail Bradley and Owen Burke. Let's quickly confirm that. So I'm opening Gail Bradley's profile. So if you see, she is on an international assignment IA. So IA identifies and I click here, it shows her original position. So in fact, Gail Bradley is on international assignment. So this is one way, right? Again, when I click here or here on this one, it will show me which person is an international assignment. The same thing, however, shows here as well, right? So it still gives me all 276 workers, but it also shows me which of those workers are international assignees. So this is one way, right? The second way, what I want is when I click here, it should only give me those two records. Or similarly, when I click here, it should only give me 3 records. Right now, it will give me all 345 for this row. So even when I click here, it is giving me or it will give me all 345 with three international assignees. So for this, what I can do is I can create something called detailed data override. So for the second summarization, I don't want the default detailed data. The default detailed data which I have added on the report, right? So in this drill down, I have added default detailed data, which is this one. But for my second column, I don't want that default. Which column? The sum column. Here I'll call it IA count. So here, I don't want the default detailed data. So I'll go to options and I'll create a detailed data override. So when I do that, here it will ask me what detailed data override you want to define. So I am adding worker, right? I'll just add age, right? Nothing else, just to show the difference. So here in detailed data, I am only adding two columns. If I want, I can add all the same columns. But more importantly, under instances to display, I don't want all instances to display. What instance do I need to display? I only want those instances to display where the person is actually an international assignment. So only
Okay.
if this condition is true, I want that instance to display. So for my second column, I have created a detailed data override. Let's run this report now. So when I run this report now, it gives me the same output. The difference is here it gives me the default detailed data, all 345 workers with these 6 or 7 columns. However, on second, it gives me the first thing, it gives me only two columns, worker and age. But more importantly, it is now only giving me these 3 rows. Who are these 3 people? These are the same people who have the international assignment. When I click here, it doesn't give me full 276. It only gives me 2. So this, and the reason for that is I have created a detailed data override for my second summarization, which is this one. Make
Okay.
sense?
Yes.
Okay. Sachin, I'll have to stop here.